What's up, guys? Tuki here, back again. This is NHL 17. This is my Quebec Nordiques franchise mode. And in this episode, we finish up the off-season as we look to move in to our third season and, of course, our second season with, in Quebec City with the Nordiques. Now, at the end of the last episode, you guys said flat out, go and get Marc-Edouard Vlasic. And that is exactly what we are going to attempt to do. I'm nervous about giving him term as far as the years go, but based on our cap situation, I kind of have no choice. You know, getting rid of Hartnell and Clarkson, that's still going to take a toll on our team for a while. But, you know, I think, do we go with 6 or 7 years? Because if I go with 7 and then just offer him what he wanted for 6, I should be able to get him. You know what? That's what I'm going to do. It's risky, but we'll give Vlasic 7 years at $6.1 million. Now, before we can do anything else, we need him to accept, because if he accepts, Karl Allner gets traded. If Karl Allner gets traded, we can make a move for Darnell Nurse. Now, the good thing is about Darnell Nurse, now Vlasic's a left-handed, so he'll be on the top line, then we'll have Lindholm, and then Nurse, if we sign him, or Hetherington and Matheson, one of the two, whoever makes it. The good news is, though, if we get Nurse, we could trade those other two guys and get some picks in return. But the problem with Darnell Nurse is that the cap space is really tight, so we'd need Allner to go first. If we do not sign Darnell Nurse, we do have some prospects we can make a play for. Again, they would fall under the 2 out of 3 rule, meaning we can sign 2 out of these 3 players because they're in the same bracket. Those guidelines, of course, we decided on at the beginning of the series. The first one is Giovanni Smith, who, of course, was drafted by the Red Wings this year, of course, in 2016. He looks to be a decent prospect. 68 overall. I'd say he still has a strong chance of making the NHL. We also have a defender, Jacob Cederholm, who is a 4th-round pick of the Winnipeg Jets. Again, 70 overall. Still probably has a decent chance to make the NHL. And then a player you should all be familiar with if you have seen one of my series. That is Adam Warner. We have seen what he can do, particularly against us, particularly with this franchise, if you still consider us the Columbus Blue Jackets. He ended up being a great goalie in the Vancouver series. But we could sign 2 out of those 3 if we can't get Darnell Nurse. If we can get Darnell Nurse, he is our only high-priority signing. From there, we'd only be allowed to sign, I believe it's backup goalie or lower, 7th-D potential defenseman or lower, and bottom 6 forwards and lower. So he would really be the only big-time prospect signing. Of course, anybody under 26, we're considering a prospect. But the big question is, moving forward, can the new Stanley Cup champion, he was on the San Jose Sharks, will Marc-Edouard Vlasic sign with us? Can we get him to join up, and can we get him to do it quick enough so that we can trade or try to sign Darnell Nurse? And there is our answer. Marc-Edouard Vlasic, as we get the achievement pop, which is fine by me. Wow, okay, that works. Marc-Edouard Vlasic, I'm very happy he has signed that. We gave him a lot of money and a lot of term. It's a huge risk, but at the very least, he signed for free. So even if I were to trade him for like a 3rd-round pick down the road, who the hell cares? We got him for free. Same thing with Karl Allner, which is now what we can do. I'm not sure. Actually, you know what? I do want to take a look at free agency first. I want to see if Darnell Nurse is still there. He's a restricted free agent, so there's probably a good chance. And Darnell Nurse is still there. So if we can get rid of Karl Allner here, and again, you know, we traded Ryan Murray to LA. We signed Allner for free. So if we get rid of Karl Allner for, say, not that much, I don't consider it much of a loss. If anything, you could consider it Ryan Murray for Marc-Edouard Vlasic, who was immediately tied with Seth Jones in terms of trade value. Like, holy shit. I'm not going to trade away Vlasic immediately because I don't want the game engine to turn on me and be like, oh, you trade away people, nobody's going to sign. But who knows, a year or 2 from now, we could trade Vlasic if we had to for somebody potentially really good. Now, Karl Allner does not have the best trade value. It also doesn't help that his morale is really low. And I'm actually going to make a jump cut here because I want to take a legitimate look at a lot of teams and see if there are any decent prospects I can go out and get for Karl Allner. So give me 1 second. So after a bit of searching, I found a prospect who I feel pretty confident can turn into somebody. There are a couple of other prospects I really wanted. I wanted to get Julien Gauthier from the Carolina Hurricanes It just wasn't going to work out. I didn't want to give up anything else other than Carl Allner. So we end up getting who I believe was Tampa's first-round pick in this past draft. I think he was 10th overall, is what it said. I mean, the trade value is a little bit concerning, but it's Stanislav Kaigorodov, which is a hell of a name. I'm going to call him Stan. He's only 19. He's a 73 starting. I feel like he has a really good chance. If he has a good year of development in Cleveland, he could really be something. He was the 10th overall pick in this past draft. A little bit of a risk, not getting perhaps more for Carl Allner, maybe not a pick. But we just traded Carl Allner for the 10th overall pick. I feel like that's pretty good on paper. But moving forward, now that trade is done, Allner's gone. We obviously have 20 contract spots to fill, which will happen, no problem. We did it last year, and that's really going to be the theme to keep Cleveland competitive. We now need to attempt to go for Darnell Nurse. And of course, if that doesn't happen, we hopefully still have the other prospects on the board to be able to take. And actually, I want to see if Smith is still there, because he's going to be one of the guys, and he isn't. Smith is gone. Smith has signed. So we need to get this Darnell Nurse deal done. And now that we have it just sucks though, because we have that extra bit of cap space. We have that extra bit of cap space. But I'm afraid of Edmonton. And I should have, now that I think about it, maybe I should have traded Carl Allner to the Edmonton Oilers to make it even more difficult for them to sign him. But they might not be able to sign him anyway. They have $1 million in cap space. Under $1 million, not even $1 million in cap space. So I think we're good. We shouldn't have had to send Allner there. We should be good to go. So let's get this Darnell Nurse deal in. We have to sign him. We have to, because we've already missed out on some decent prospects. I'm thinking 2 years, $2 million. Actually, I want to see how high up we can go before it switches to a second. That's still a third-round pick. Is it 2.2 that it switches to a second? Let's get this precise here. The max. So that's the max right there. $2.175 million per season for 2 years. That keeps it at a third-round pick. They cannot match that. We already know it, unless they do something. But we should be able to get Darnell Nurse here. Combine that with Marc-Edouard Vlasic and the prospects that we already have. Things are looking good. It's just, can we get Darnell Nurse in? And then we move forward to the preseason. Nurse has accepted. We just now need word from Edmonton. They are not willing to match. For a third-round pick, we get Darnell Nurse. That is a good bit of business. We turned a third-round pick. We essentially turned a third-round pick in Carl Allner into Darnell Nurse and Kai Gorodov, or however the fuck you pronounce that name. I'm happy with that. The defense, I feel like, is much improved, and I'm excited. So let's sim forward to the preseason. I'm going to get this team set up, and then, of course, I'll give you a full look at the team. NHL, AHL. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm excited. I want this season to go our way, and I feel like it will. Let's go forward to the preseason. Now, normally I wouldn't point this out because, it's not that exciting. Our season ticket drive ended. Last year, we were at 95% sold in every section. This year, only 88%, which is still great. But that proves that we need to get it done, or things could go sour very quickly for us. Now, as I get ready to show you the rosters, guys, I just want you to know, yes, indeed, there are decisions that I am going to need your help with, because there has been some interesting progression from some interesting players. But as you can see, 95 offense, 95 defense, 90 goaltending. I've only set up the rosters. I haven't done any other, owner miscellaneous stuff. I don't know what stuff is. But in the AHL too, 81, 80, and 70 at the moment. So that'll be an interesting team to watch. I'm not sure what the Monsters will do this year. But I won't waste any more time. Let's get a look at the roster. And this is nowhere near set in stone. But first up, Matthew Tkachuk, 91 overall, a legit first line forward. he needs to have a massive season for us. He needs to perform. Matt Duchene, of course, in 88, and Tyler Toffoli in 87. All three of these guys legit first-line forwards. So is Brandon Saad. So, I don't know. I'm going to be intrigued to see if his morale drops at all because we have him on the second line. It scares me that he's dropped off a little bit because he's still an amazing player. I suppose worst comes to worst that he starts to drop. We could probably, as much as it would suck, we could probably trade Tyler Toffoli and just have those three on the top line if that situation comes to it. Obviously, right now, it's great to have them as the top four. Second line, no progression really from Alex Wenberg. He's still looking good. You know, he's still 24 years old. I'm not sure how much better he's going to get. Medium top six. This might be his cap, which is all right because if he gets any better, he could be threatening, much like Kachuk just did to Saad, to become a top line guy. We have Bjorkstrand here on the second line. He is a legit second line player, an 85 overall. Now that might also be his cap as a medium top six forward. The bottom six, though, is where it gets interesting. Pierre-Luc Dubois, technically a second line forward, up to an 85 overall. And yes, if you watch the Vancouver series, this is starting to be a little bit similar in terms of we have so much good talent, we need people to go, but then we can replenish draft picks and just keep that cycle going, and that is the point. Third line center at the moment, Sonny Milano, up to an 84 overall, 75 faceoffs, which isn't bad, but it's looking like we might have to have him on this team. We have Puljujärvi, who's up to an 83 at 20 years old, which is great. And then the fourth line, William Karlsson. He was great for us last year, but he's 25, and that might be his cap. Elias Lindholm is probably an 85 overall. He's been hit hard by morale issues, not making the playoffs, and he had a rough end to the end of last season. And then we have Mats Olsson, who's a depth forward, so he is perfect on that fourth line, and it's awesome that somebody we drafted in our first draft has made the team this quickly. That's fantastic. So my question is, what do we do? Like, do we keep Karlsson and Lindholm? Because I guarantee it might end up being another Scott Hartnell situation where you keep them on that line and they just complain and then their value plummets. I mean, Elias Lindholm, I'll actually show you guys the trade values really quick. But I say Dubois stays. Puljujärvi stays. I imagine Bjorkstrand stays. Like, I don't know. I mean, we probably keep Wenberg. Does Bjorkstrand stay? 5-star shooting category. He's got a great wrist shot. He should be a good player for us. Sonny Milano's 22. Lindholm's 23. Karlsson's 25. I mean, to me, 2 out of 3 have to go. I don't know if you'd agree. I mean, maybe we could hold on for a bit, start the season, and see if the morale issues start to come up. I'm not sure. Let me know what you think. And, of course, like I said, I will show you guys the trade values. But it's an interesting situation offensively. If it wasn't for the morale system, an easy solution would be just to turn it off, which, I don't know. We could. I'm not against that. I mean, if that's what you guys want to see, of course, just let me know. Let me know what we should do there. Defensively, we also have a situation. Vlasic and Jones, both 91s. Holy shit. That's probably the best pairing in the game. Maybe Subban and Yossi rival it. We have Lindholm and Savard. Very happy with that pairing. And then on the third line, no progression from Darnell Nurse, but he and Dylan Hetherington are both 83s. And when I show you the trade value, you'll see Hetherington actually has better value than Darnell Nurse. They're the same age. Nurse obviously has a much higher potential. And I imagine Hetherington's going to cap out in an 83. But that's my question to you, is do we hold on to both of them and just play Nurse on the right side as a left-handed shot? Or do we try to capitalize on Hetherington's trade value, which isn't amazing, but it's still something? We could trade him and even Matheson, who, as you can tell, is down in Cleveland, to try and get Nurse a right-handed D partner on that third pairing. So let me know what you think there. The goaltending, Korpisalo is still the man. He's up to an 89 overall. I know there was some mixed feelings about how he did last year, but I mean, this is the year to prove himself. And I mean, look at that. We have an 89 overall goalie for $4.5 million over the next 3 years. We are not going to find a better deal than that. In 3 years, we're fucked because he's going to ask for like $8 million a season. The backup goalie is Mike Condon. I was going to go for Enroth again. He actually signed. And again, I know some people like to see it. I always forget to go to the news feed to show you guys the signings and like trade deadline moves. I'm sorry. I always forget, but I just get so focused on what I need to do with our team. But the goaltending is pretty much set. So the question is, what do we do with Karlsson, Lindholm, or maybe even Milano? And what do we do defensively with Dylan Hetherington? But as we get a look at Cleveland, they're not as strong as they were last year, but we do have some good pieces in here. And I still think they should be a competitive team. Now, there would have been more prospects, but a lot of the guys were from the CHL and are still under 20, so we'd have to send them back. But right now, Paul Bittner had some good progression in the offseason, hoping that by next year he's threatening to be on our main fourth line. Vitaly Abramov makes the team. He is the second line left wing in Cleveland, and then Matt Mastelle is still there as well. We signed Gabriel Bork to be on the fourth line, or maybe first line, depending on how this team's doing. Holland, Flynn, Cliche, and Joe Vitale are the centers. And then on the right side, we have Kevin Stenlund, who, up to a 78 overall, is looking all right, but he's 22 years old. He's quickly running out of time to really prove that he could make the NHL level. We do have Stanislav Gorodov, which I will get used to that name eventually. He's looking good, man. 75 overall, 19 years old. Zach Hyman down on the third line, his last year of development. And then P.A. Parento is there on the fourth line. We, of course, have depth signings for each spot. And I will actually show you guys right now. Loshivo, I believe is how you pronounce it. He is the backup right wing, just a random free agent that we signed. We actually signed him to his entry-level deal, but we are free to get rid of him. Albin Storm is still here. Cade Jensen is there. Thomas are the two defensive backups. These guys are all AHL signings. Where is our last one? And Ryan Vandervlis is the backup center. So we are signing AHL potential guys following the rules. Otherwise, we'd have even better. Defensively, Matheson and Rasmus Anderson, who's up to a 78. Pretty good signing on that part. If Matheson goes, it will be Karlsson and Anderson on the top pairing, which will be pretty good. Ralph Jarrett, another one of our prospects, makes the team. And then Rundblad and Peterin were depth signings. The goaltending, we're going to give it to Sergei Kozanov to start the year. But, of course, Oskar Dansk is still there if needed. That, right now, is what this franchise as a whole looks like. And I really do think it's promising. The question is how much would the morale system really screw with us if we were to keep this team the same? But again, if enough people said, sure, turn it off, then, we could turn off the morale system. By the way, we do have the champion tag as well in the bottom left-hand corner. This team's built to compete. That was the plan. If we made the playoffs last year, that was icing on the cake. We didn't. But just like that, we went from, hopefuls? We weren't quite in rebuilder status, but we went from hopeful to contender to champion in about a calendar year. So things are looking good for us. Like I said, I will get you guys a look at the trade values. Matthew Tkachuk, holy shit. I mean, if he doesn't work out, we could trade him for just about anybody in the game if he just for some reason can't find his scoring touch. Brandon Saad's up there as well. Toffoli and Lindholm still have decent value, not quite as high as it was, I believe, when we traded for him. Gabe Velarde's there. He should be in Cleveland next season. Elias Lindholm and Sonny Milano. Actually, Wenberg as well. Dubois. So that group right there all have the same. Bjorkstrand as well. How did I miss him? They all have the same trade value. Decent. Second to third round pick combination worthy. It's just a matter of what we do. As you can see, Dylan Hetherington is there. Darnell Nurse is down here. We got Nurse for a third round pick, though, so I'm okay with that. But I think that pretty much covers everything. And then we have just a ton of unsigned players, like just a shit ton, most of whom came from the last draft, mainly this cluster of AHL top 2 defensemen who probably won't make the NHL level, but maybe they'll make the monsters at some point. Anyway, I think I've covered everything finally. You guys know the questions I have already asked. Make sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. Help me mold this series to what you would like it to be. And yeah, in the next episode, we begin competing. It is Season 3, and we're going for it all. The aim is to win the Stanley Cup next year, and that very well may happen. But guys, as always, thank you so much for watching this. If you would, leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. I do appreciate the support. Subscribe if you haven't already to continue following this series. and I will see you guys in Season 3.